welcome to Season 3, Episode 3 of Creative Glue, where we continue to delve into the magical bonds that unite the world of creatives. I'm your host, Scott Robinson, and today I'm joined by Steve Wolff, a production designer with decades of experience in the industry. Now, Steve began his journey with no formal education in the arts. In fact, you could say his career found him. He went on to work on shows such as Dirty Sexy Money, Boston Public, and once upon a time being mentored by and working with some of the biggest names in Hollywood. Steve, thanks so much for joining us today, and I'm keen to hear more about how you got into the industry and your creative process. So let's go back to the beginning and maybe start with what kind of kid were you and how did creativity show up early on for you?
Yeah, it's funny because when I was a child, I lived on a cul-de-sac, and it was a time where your parents let you go out the front door, leave it to Beaver era, and you
Love
played.
that.
Mom and came out and yelled, "Steven, dinner!" And if you didn't come in, maybe she got alarmed for a minute or two. But in the day, we were all buddies, and the fun thing that the kids on the cul-de-sac would do were plays. So in the day, we took paper and we wrote scripts. So Snow White's going to say, and then Cinderella's going to say. I didn't care what they said. I just wanted to know what was it going to look like. So going through friends' garages and digging out junk from their parents' garage, babysitting my siblings when my parents would go out on a Saturday night. I either redecorated the house or stole stuff for our plays. I never really understood, though, that having that passion can be a career.
Yeah.
I come from a typical Jewish middle class LA suburbanite family where you're going to college, you're going to get an education, and you're going to be a doctor or a lawyer, or we'll take an accountant if that's the best you can do. I was lost. I didn't know that having a passion for something like design is a career. So I
Yes.
had to go a very long, circuitous way to find my path. And the closest thing I could find to being creative was architecture. So you're designing and you're drawing, you're not reading law books and you're not making cost reports. So that's pretty cool. So I'm going to go to architecture school. So I went to USC. And going to USC, you are in the School of Architecture. You're not learning anything else. It's architecture. You're going to be an architect. By my second year in school, I knew I wasn't going to be good at this. Like, I believe we're all on this earth for a purpose. It's finding that purpose within us and how we tap into it.
Yeah.
Somebody once told me at the very tip of our brains, we all know what we really want to do in life to be happy. However, very few of us are fortunate enough to tap into that message. Well, I knew architecture wasn't going to be it. And I was fortunate enough to be introduced to a gentleman at Universal who was in the legal department. Now, legal and architecture have nothing to do with together, zero. At the end of my interview, of which may I say for 45 minutes, all he did was talk about him. My background, my passion, my desire, my education. No, no, no. Let me tell you about me, which I learned was sort of the typical Hollywood story. But he looked at my resume, and at the bottom of my resume, it said University of Southern California School of Architecture. And he goes, us Trojans need to stick together. And he made a phone call and he called the executive art director down in production because in those days, I'm so old, Universal was just Universal for Universal. They weren't
Yeah.
owned by Seagrams or Matsushita or NBC Comcast. There was an art studio. You made art.
Yeah. Wow.
So I went down there to interview as an architect because Universal Studios was doing a production building for Steven Spielberg. They were building Amblin Entertainment on the property, and they needed an architect slash draftsman.
Amazing.
So it's a 6-week gig. It pays $9 an hour, and we'd love to have you. Because
Brilliant.
this gentleman who was a lawyer saw my SC degree, made a phone call, got an interview, got hired, and started a 6-week journey.
Wow.
It was right before I was getting married, and so at night, when all the set designers left the bullpen where we would draw, because we were a staff of designers. There were set designers, art directors, set decorators, prop masters, location managers, of which I knew nothing about. I was completely ignorant. I'm doing this Amblin Entertainment multi-million dollar building for Steven Spielberg, but I'm looking at set designers that are making $1,000 a week.
Wow.
I'm like, dude, sign me up. How do I get this job? Well, it's not an easy route. You know,
No.
I tell kids all the time who look at my career and they go, God, Steve, you did Back to the Future and you did John Hughes movies and you went to Hawaii and did Karate Kid and Mrs. Doubtfire and all these movies that are iconic, my life story. I want to be you. And I tell them, no, you don't. Being in this business, first of all, you have to be a little ego demented. You know, it's a very ego driven business and everybody thinks they're very important. And if you don't think you're important, then why be there?
Yeah.
But within the realm of being reasonable and being a team player, you are given an opportunity to do something that not very many people get to do. And you
It's
get to have a life in a world that is all make believe. In fact, Scott, I tell people all the time, I'm not really a very good friend because I only deal with people that are in a script, that are words that I can tell them, that somebody tells them what to say, somebody tells them how to say it, somebody tells them how to act it, and I tell you what the world's going to look like that you're going to say it in. When you have that much control,
Yeah.
how do you go out in the real world and deal with people that are either going to be disappointing or uninteresting? You know, you're as a production designer, a lot of times my friends who over the course of their careers were given opportunities to teach a class every now and then at different private universities. I was always that guy that would say, bring your class down to see what we do. Because let them see firsthand what it's like to be on a set.
Yeah.
And they get down there and they're like, oh, this is amazing. And you live where and what kind of life do you lead? And it is impressive. I'm impressed that this is all mine. Because if you would have told me the young Steve that was journeying blindly into a career where there's no course to follow, it's not like you get hired and stay there for 40 years.
Mhm.
You're going to survive as an independent contractor. You're going to get married and have a family, and you're going to live in one of the most expensive cities in the United States.
Yeah.
That's not a recipe for sanity. So I understand why people in our industry are singular, having affairs with sheep, you know, living in the woods. I understand. It makes sense to me. I'm the odd guy. My wife and I just celebrated, no, I'll call it celebrate, hit 43 years of being married.
Amazing.
And to
Amazing.
be in an industry that doesn't really kind of promote that.
Mm.
But I am so grateful, Scott, for the stories of my life.
Yeah.
Things that I know, the things that I got to see, the places I got to go, the buildings I went in, the scouting that I did, the little goofy kid who lived on a cul-de-sac that was not the cool kid, who wasn't the kid that everybody like, oh, I want to be with him, rose to a career that everywhere you go in this business, you're the one people want to hear. They're
So I mean,
fascinated, your
so
stories.
you talk about, I suppose, young Steve and the fact that architecture wasn't your path. I mean, what was that moment of, or what did that moment of clarity feel like when you suddenly ended up there at Universal and you realized that, like, wow, set designing is something that I could actually do.
Yeah. I'll
What
tell
did
you,
that feel like?
I really believe that we all, in the pit of our stomach, know the right answer. We just have to find it. And we have to be quiet enough to feel the right answer. And I know this is all goofy in the world of spirit and yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's really, I believe if you're writing a song, you're writing lyric, you're writing a script, you're designing, creating a painting, you're throwing pottery, you know in your core being when you hit it. And you know this is the best that you can give at that point. And as much as I love design, you have to remember there's a team of players here. This is
Yeah.
business. They're entrusting you with an exceedingly high budget. You know, I worked on movies like Starship Troopers. Starship Troopers was $130 million, 50 million, whatever, crazy number. The
Wow.
construction budget on that movie was millions of dollars. You need to perform within those millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's great to visualize and conceive and idealize. Oh, wait till you see, we're going to build the whole set upside down. Sure, but you have to be able to pay for it. You know, I tell people when I teach this or help my friends with their class, I say there's three people who make a film, a short, a documentary, a commercial, student film, whatever you want to call it, happen. The director, the director directs the actors and directs the production. The director of photography, who directs the photography, the grips, the electrics, cameras, all that business, all those cables and lights. And then there's the production designer, who, if you take the title, designs the production. When you put those three key people together and you do something amazing, there is an internal high. There is a sense you want to cry because it happened. I was a young set designer on a movie called Flatliners with Kiefer Sutherland, Julia Roberts, who else was in that? The production designer was Eugenio Zanetti, who had won an Academy Award for restoration years later. When I met this man, I knew he was my God. Like, I want to be you. And I learned from a father who was very professional, shut up and listen. My goal was to become a production designer that was going to stay around. I didn't want to be a one movie guy because I knew a producer.
Yeah.
And the way I wanted to get there was being good at my job. So I was willing to maybe do more than my job called upon me because I maybe had the ability to help the process come to fruition. But when that production designer sat with that DP and sat with that director, and you had Joel Schumacher and you had was it Jan de Bon? I don't remember the DP on our movie on Flatliners, and Eugenio Zanetti in the same room, trust me, anything that I would have said would have been stupid. But I wanted to be good at this.
Yeah.
I really wanted people to see me at my best. And in
And you've
order to get
obviously,
to my best, I took my time to get there.
yeah, and you've obviously worked with some remarkable people over the years. I mean, are there people who stand out as having like had a biggest influence on your journey?
Are you kidding? I mean, the ironic part is I remember my father when I made this transition into television and film from the world of architecture. My dad was an accountant, a very successful accountant. And my mom was a nurse. So, you know, we were very professional. And then there was me, the art dude. Like, how do you deal with a kid that's in the art world? And I remember my father saying to me, how can you be an art director? You don't like film. Well, I got to tell you, and I can, you know, I'm putting it out here in the universe. I've never seen Star Wars. I've never seen half of the movies that are iconic Hollywood,
Wow.
only because it just wasn't calling me. But what it
Yeah.
did for me as I went forward in my career, I had no preconceived ideas of what stuff looked like.
Mm,
And in the
interesting.
olden days, when I was art directing, the way we got research was we used to call Lillian Michelson, whose husband was a production designer, and she had a research library. And she cut magazine clippings and articles and newspaper clippings. And I'm doing a Victorian house. I don't know about Victorian details. And she would send you clippings. You
Wow.
know, it was just an amazing journey. I almost feel sometimes like it was a gift that I didn't deserve because I didn't
Yes.
really work hard enough. I was a generation of set designers, art directors, young production designers that if you hung in there and you kept your mouth shut and you did your job and you listened to people that knew more than you, if you chose that you wanted to go forward, you just had to wait for that opportunity and step through. But in the meantime, enjoy where you are. You know,
Yeah.
when I talked to to Jess about your project and the podcast and the stories that people tell, I your two previous guests, Chris Evans and Eduardo
Eduardo.
Castro, we all
Yeah.
did Once Upon a Time together.
Brilliant.
We're family. These people to be put in that league is mind blowing.
Yeah.
I'm still that 5-year-old geeky kid that's not cool. And you're around people that are so impressive and so knowledgeable that you don't want to be stupid and you don't want to open your mouth and look like you don't know. The unfortunate thing, without being political, the business today has so changed its format,
Yeah.
its requests, its needs, that I don't know that there's an opportunity to really understand the art of what goes into this. You know, my first show I did as a set designer when I got to go on a location was Karate Kid 2. And I went to Hawaii. And the reason I went to Hawaii was they were doing a set at Warner Brothers for the Bone Dance, which was the final scene of the movie, which honestly I still have never seen. Um, Al Whitlock was Universal's god of matte paintings. Well, first of all, if in those days you said to me a matte painting, don't tell anybody, but I don't know what that is. I just shook my head like, okay, matte paintings. We designed the set. The production designer gives me a sketch, gives me the parameters of what the scene is. And the beautiful thing about starting in this industry as a set designer is you get to do all the bells and whistles, all the intricacies, all the moldings and the finishes, and what were the materials that they used in those days. And working with prop guys and paint guys and plasterers that can imitate and mimic anything you want,
Yeah.
the world's yours.
Yeah.
So I do the set and I'm learning, oh, I get it. A matte painting is this glass painting that goes over and above the lines of the set. It doesn't move. So that's why the camera can only move in one direction. Brilliant. Brilliant. But by the time I was in my fourth decade in this business, I was doing Once Upon a Time in Vancouver, where we actually had an entire stage in green screen, which for
Yeah.
those who don't understand green screen, the set's virtual.
Mm.
But we designed the set in the art department. It was not something that a visual effects house created. We in
Yeah.
the art department created the castle for Camelot. We created Cinderella's castle. So
Amazing.
I'm a grown man with grown children making castles.
Does it get any better?
Green screen. So in green screen world, anything is an opportunity.
Yeah.
So it's funny because once upon a time that I did seasons 5 and 6, and they haven't been around in the world of finding it on Hulu, Netflix. Just recently, I found it on Hulu. And I have to say, I sit home at night now that I am retired. I live in Palm Springs, California, resort community, hoity toity, of which I am not. And I'm watching this backlog of my work.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, I don't know. There are very few things that move me like that
Yeah.
because I know what went into creating that design. I know the backlog. Like, I'll give you a little secret. We were doing Starship Troopers. In fact, I was writing notes of stories to tell you. And one of the stories I wanted to share with you was we were doing Starship Troopers and we budgeted for 5 times the construction budget that we could afford. So we had to cut back drastically as we were going through the production.
Wow.
We were doing a scene where Denise Richards and one of the other actors are running to the pods because the mothership is going down. So we had these walls that we had created where the pods came out and they got basically ejected out into the universe. So, you want to do some kind of graphic on the door walls. That's cool, right? We got no money, but we can paint numbers that look like NASA.
Yeah.
I put on one gate 2/13/84 and the other door says 11/23/85. Those are my kids' birthdays.
Love it. I
Nobody's ever done that. And I'm like, I know that that's my kid's story.
Yeah.
Those are the moments that you realize, like, this is going to be here forever.
Yeah. Those little
No
the
one's going
little
to
Easter
know. I'll
eggs.
be gone. I'll be dust. No one will give two about the movie. But if you have to work in life and you're not a generational wealth baby, do something you like.
Definitely.
My
Definitely.
son, who was an athlete, a great athlete in high school, is going to be 40 this year. And school was not his thing. It was not going to work for him. My son is a producer for Fox Sports, which is his passion. Loves sports his whole life. He's won Emmys. He's been all over. He's done Super Bowls. But the excitement that I get as a parent, knowing that my kid has found his ultimate passion and career, there's not a better gift in the universe. Our daughter is 41. She came to me when she was hitting college and going, I can't do this. College is not working here. I think I have your creative gene, Dad, and I would like to be a hairdresser. My daughter went to beauty school while all of my friends were sending their kids to law schools and Harvard and Georgetown. And, my kid was going to beauty school. My daughter is a rock star. She's now got her own studio. She has her own line. She's a mom of two, married to the love of her life, living her best life, and makes more money than her lawyer friends.
And she's happy.
Thrilled. You
Yeah.
can't, I think part of what saddens me today is everybody wants to rise to the top without paying their dues. I was listening to Eduardo's interview with you the other night, and I was listening to him say, my father was a doctor. Well, when you come from a family that's a doctor, you're not going to become a costume designer. Like, that's not in the wheelhouse.
Definitely.
My parents never told me there are schools where you can learn this creative passion that you have.
Yeah.
And I wish, I studied my ass off and got B's. I was not an A student.
Yeah.
So you get into the world and you're already defeated. I
So
say the two things every kid wants to do in life. One, they want to be president of the United States. That would be so cool. I'm going to live in the White House. I'm going to go on Air Force One and I'm going to have parties and all the rock stars are going to come sing at the White House. And I'm going to be cool. And then you realize, oh, wait a minute, there's only one president, and I may not be that one. So, no, that's off. Okay. Choice two, I'm going to be a rock star or a very famous actor. No, you're going to be a waiter.
yeah.
So, of
I was definitely on the rock star end of things. That was my dream. But
course.
here
And
we are.
you follow it because you don't know better or you're
Yeah.
stupid. But why not?
Exactly.
Why
Exactly.
would you want to sit at a desk and do something you don't like?
So I get the sense that you you also want to be seen in your work. I mean, what does that mean to you, and to be recognized now, having had such an amazing career?
Well, I always used to say to directors, producers, studio executives, whomever came to tour our body of work, it's great when they call you down on stage and they want to talk to you and tell you that this is beautiful. I haven't, as episodic television goes, These sets are feature film quality. We don't get this in the world of episodic. My first response every time is, this is not just me. I have an amazing team, set decorators, set dressers, buyers, construction coordinators, foremen, painters, carpenters, greensmen. I mean, there is a collaborative of genius here.
Yeah.
And I am the fortunate one that gets to be at the helm and say, rah for us. But I have said to painters, for Dirty Sexy, I said, I want to paint this hallway. And I gave him a sample of a green. And I remember him looking at me like, what? Like, and instead of saying, you're out of your mind, he said to me, let me make you some samples. And he came back to my office. I got back from scouting. I get to my office, and there's like 6 samples on the wall. And I'm going, oh my God, what was I thinking? But you can't, this is not a one-man team. I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, I played baseball for maybe a year. I wasn't good at it. It wasn't what I wanted to do. I knew I was letting my dad down, but I didn't want to play baseball.
Yeah.
I have a kid 30 years later who's a super athlete, willing to go try out, he's a superstar. He and I have had endless conversations about the difference between growing up learning to play sports and not playing sports, or
Mhm.
dance in a dance group like my daughter was and not being in a dance group. You learn that it's all not about you.
Yeah.
You are a team member, and your team is relying on you to be your best. So when I would work on shows and see people taking advantage or abusing the privilege,
Yeah.
and sometimes it was because they couldn't help themselves. I mean, I worked with some crazy people. And you would say, how can you not realize how fortunate you are? But, there's mental illness is mental illness, and it
Yeah.
hides in all kinds of ways. But I realized, having not been a team player and not being competitive, I was late to the game to learn to stand up for yourself. Let
Yeah.
your voice be heard. Say your spiel and then shut up, which I don't do now because you'll notice I don't stop talking.
It sounds like a career of nonstop, nonstop.
I
I'm
never
I'm
was without a job.
Yeah, and
Never.
I'm curious as to, that part of the process in terms of, taking, something that is a blank canvas, literally a blank canvas, and turning that into, a magical world that is created out of nothing, and that movement from very hand detailed kind of, crafting now to a digital green screen world where, the craftsmanship potentially in the physical form isn't there, but there's still the artistic need to create those environments. I mean,
Yeah.
talk to me about that transition and the pros and cons. I mean, you know,
People would say to me, you're so creative. You have an amazing imagination. Your home, your wife is so lucky that, she's married to you, that look how you live. And I'm like, we all are designers. We just don't title ourselves designer. And they go, no, I'm not. I said, let me ask you something. Do you have a couch in your house? Yeah. Well, who picked it out? I did. Well, why'd you buy that couch? Well, I needed a couch. But there are a million couches you could have bought. You bought a black one, not a white one. You bought a modern one, not a period one. You bought one that you could sleep on, not versus one that you could just sit on. Do you have, we all make choices.
yeah,
But I don't think what we understand is how that choice impacts our mindset when we wake up in the morning, coming home to our house, what it makes us feel when we walk in the door at the end of the day. So for me, I can't help seeing my life as a movie set. My wife, our biggest arguments, I move shit. Her kitchen is her kitchen. I'm not allowed to touch it. But when I see something that's just not where
Shifted.
In the morning. But the world, by the time we got to Dirty Sexy Money, which was 2009, and then Once Upon a Time was 2016, and now all of a sudden everything was digital, and it
Yeah.
wasn't any longer, well, can we get the staff department to carve a mold to make the shield? It's all now digital, and it's all created 3D.
Yeah.
I feel sorry. Well, the craft is different, but for someone like me as the designer, the challenge is actually better now because what you once might have thought impossible is
Yeah.
kind of doable.
Yeah.
I remember on Once Upon a Time, the writers were in Los Angeles and they're brilliant. I mean, we would read these scripts and you're like, you're dealing with brilliance. Like these guys are good. It's like working on when I did Party of Five. These scripts, you can't mess them up. But every once in a while, on Once Upon a Time, the creative minds of how are we going to torture Hook? Or what are we going to do to Emma? What are we going to do to Snow in a virtual world? And they would write these ideas that you were like, wait a minute, wait a minute. The capabilities only go so far. And so we would literally sit in the conference room, I remember in Vancouver. What if we did this? What if we had him swinging on the arm of a large pendulum clock and he's thrown into the rocks, falls down through the grate into the flames of fire? What? That's bigger than feature film world would have been when I started my career.
Yeah.
Now it's episodic television. Sure, one scene, no problem.
Yeah.
So the
Amazing.
opportunity to push the envelope now is even more.
So what is that process when you first sit down, I suppose, with a script or director? I mean, how do you start to build that world?
Yeah, it's funny. I was late to the meeting with you today simply because I'm computer stupid. And I had to update Safari, which literally threw me into a tither. If you took my blood pressure, I was poof. But you got to remember, I'm so old. I started before computers. We were old school. And so we had,
Yeah.
I'm Back to the Future 2 and 3. We had illustrators that were drawing a Pepsi Cola cup. Nowadays, you can go online and what am I want to search for? Modern cola cups. I had 4,000 images. So the way my process works is whether it's a magazine, a clip from a movie, um, uh, whatever is online that I see, any image that I think sets something off in my brain, like, that's cool. I take all of these images without having to answer the question, where does that go? Like,
Yeah.
what is that? I don't know, but I think it's cool. And so all of a sudden, within a couple of hours of literally leaving your body to that creative side where time is irrelevant, and all I want to do is look at another image for a floor pattern, a marble pattern, an inlaid wood grain cabinetry that I could put on the set on into the textures. What texture can I put on this element? When you stand back and you look at what you've compiled on this wall of imagery, I don't know. I think there comes a time where, again, that sixth sense, mother's intuition, I just know where this is going. And you go through the process. And because it has been so deeply seated in your gut, you know how to defend it and you know how to sell it. And so I used to have producers say to me when we were dealing with directors, you need to sell them on this design. We need to shoot on stage this day, or we need to shoot this on this location. Because I now see and I understand I do have a passion for what I do that's still very much alive. And when I
Yeah.
get in the room with the director, and I will never say to a director, this is how I would shoot it, master this way, coverage over his shoulder. That's not my job. My job is sort of lead the horse to the water because when I've designed this set, of course, in my mind, I've already directed the scene. Like I know where the best angle would be for the backdrop behind this conversation. And I know when Joe walks in the room, what do I want the backdrop behind him to say about the world they're in?
Mm,
How do I want to be a character that has no words? I did Boston Public and David Kelly, who I only met twice, and his office was directly across from mine. I mean, the man came to work every day, 9 to 5, parked his car, went upstairs, took a yellow pad, wrote scripts, The Practice, Ally McBeal, Boston Public, went home at 5 o'clock to his wife and family, and was an amazing man. But he would always say, I want these characters to, their sets to speak to who they are.
mhm.
That's that's great. Like, are you kidding me? I love that. I can't ask for a better direction.
Yeah, it's a pretty
And
good
so
canvas.
and so when you do that, and I think this is good. Like is it the best? I guarantee you there's 100 other people that could give you 100 better offers. But I'm here with the job to give you the benefit of my experiences and my knowledge.
Yeah,
And hopefully you feel it and you see it and it makes you feel the same way that I feel. And that I promise you that what I'm showing you, we're going to provide. It will be there on the day. And I want to be there and I want to see you celebrate that you're going to have a good day.
yeah, yeah. Create
It's
that
just,
that
I
set.
don't know of many professions that give you that.
Yeah,
Maybe, sports, you have a good game, you get to go the locker room with the guys, like my house, we're big Dodger fans, get the dugout with all the guys, and it's like, cool, you know, we did well today as a team.
yeah,
But I wish every kid growing up knew what I didn't know till I was older. One, you don't have to be a doctor or a lawyer. Two, you don't have to be a 4.0 student to succeed in the world. Three, you're not ready to be at the top. You better learn and start at the bottom and chart your journey. It's not going to be easy. There's going to be setbacks because we don't have a career that's locked in.
yeah.
I don't know when you finish a job where the next job is coming from. Yeah,
So
there's great stories, but the stories don't pay the bills.
yeah. So I mean, on that front, I mean, what's your take on imposter syndrome? Especially when things come as easy as they seem to. You've rolled from one gig to the next, and it's all just
I
sort of
have paid
happened.
more therapists to listen to me talk about imposter syndrome than I care to know about.
You get to do
Because
it for free today on the pod.
I'm convinced that when I walk out of the room, the producers or whomever turn to each other and go, he don't know what he's talking about. But I say it with conviction, and I really love what we've done.
Yeah,
I really believe that what I'm bringing to you is not half baked. There's a lot of brilliant production designers. I was fortunate enough that I did Steel Magnolias in 1988 in Natchitoches, Louisiana.
wow.
Yeah, Natchitoches. I couldn't even spell it, yet alone know where it was. I worked with Gene Callahan. Now, for a kid who was not a film student, for a kid who never took a film class in his life, I was amongst an Academy Award winning set decorator. I
Yeah,
was working with Herbert Ross, a brilliant director, a man who started his career, I believe, don't hold me to it, but Herbert was a choreographer. And so working on Steel Magnolias and designing this, for example, Truvy's Beauty Shop was not only about authenticating the South and the home beauty salon built on the back of your ranch home. There was a dance that Herbert would orchestrate in his directing. He had all these women in this scene. And if you watch that movie, watch how the camera is you're a viewer in the room, but they don't know you're there.
yeah,
Sally walks across to the sink. Daryl Hannah has a line. She crosses Dolly Parton, picks up the conversation, goes over to Shirley MacLaine. Shirley and Julia have some sort of intercourse going on. And it's all done in a master.
Yeah.
And it's all done because Herbert has seen this staging as a dance. Now, what you want to do as a designer is you want to give them a set for that dance.
Yep. Definitely.
Come on. When you do that and you see it work, you go home at night and you say, like, I'm part of something special. Like, I know this is going to be special.
Mm.
And then I get my own personal stories. Quick, short story, Steel Magnolias. The art department goes to Natchitoches early because we're going to set design, location, scout, and we've got a lot of work to do before first team and everybody comes to Natchitoches. There's not a lot to do in Natchitoches, Louisiana, in case you didn't know.
Not high on the
Every
tourism
Wednesday
hotspot.
night, every Wednesday night, the art department would leave our trailer and we went to another trailer called Bodacious Country and Bar. And they had a guy from Shreveport come to teach country western line dancing. Now, I'm a white Jewish boy who actually has rhythm. And I partnered up with this blonde haired young girl, and she realized, like, wow, you learn quick. So we were sort of advancing the steps and the movements and everything else. I'm having a blast. Like, again, the goofy kid is at the top of the leaderboard. Go back to prep the movie, have a meeting in the art department. Herbert Ross comes in for a meeting, and we say to him, you need to come to Bodacious Country to go country western dancing because it's so much fun. He comes on a Wednesday night and he meets my dance partner. Well, it turns out she is a competitive country western two-step-in professional.
Oh, wow.
So Herbert says, you need to be in the movie. So if you watch Steel Magnolias and you watch the wedding reception, there is a moment where they cut to this blonde-haired bridesmaid in a 1980s powder blue bridesmaid's dress, two-stepping.
Brilliant.
He
All
was
because you
like,
met in a bar. I love it. I love it. I mean, you know, looking back over all of these places and people and projects you've been part of, like what stays with you the most?
I did a lot of work in Rhode Island. I was the Rhode Island production designer that seemed to know the lay of the land. And again, I was an architect major. Well, living in California, anything that's 30 years old, we tear it down, start over again, build something new that's uglier. You go to the East Coast and you realize, wait a minute, this is where the founding fathers came and you haven't torn this stuff down yet? We shot at the house where they shot Meet Joe Black.
Yeah.
And there's a moment where is it Brad Pitt? Meet Joe Black, they're out on the patio on the water and sun's rising. And it's beautiful. Well, we were shooting an episode of a series that I did there that never made it. And I'm sitting there on the steps with my crew having coffee and donuts in this mansion. And I have to pinch myself.
Yeah.
We went down to Newport where all the summer homes of the Vanderbilts and all of the money summered. We were doing a pilot for Warner Brothers, and we needed to do a White House dinner for a formal dinner at the White House. Well, we went down to Newport and shot in the mansion where they shot. It's Rose Cliff is The Great Gatsby. The Great Gatsby shot in this mansion. The location manager, we dressed the house, we got all everything's done. Crew's showing up in the morning, 7 o'clock crew call. We're done. The location manager says to me, look, you guys are done. Here's the key. You lock up the door. Everything's secured. See you in the morning. Well, my set decorator and I are walking through Rosecliff Manor in Newport where they shot The Great Gatsby, and I got the keys. I'm like, people don't get to do this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I shot at the Chicago, it was in Chicago, the Tribune Tower, which is right on Lake Michigan. The very top floor of the Michigan Tribune building, which is now turned into condos, the office of the building manager was, I want to say, a captain at one time. And he had the building built so that off of his penthouse office floor, he had a walk around, a widow's walk, I think they called it, so he could see ships coming in the harbor. Well, not very many people got into this office because it was sort of closed quarters. I had the key leaving, sitting in his chair. And again, you have to ask yourself, how did I get here?
Yeah.
Like, what is happening that these opportunities, and that's when I think it's okay to say, you know what? I've paid my dues. I've learned my craft. I am good at what I do. And I do deserve to be here. And I do deserve a seat at the table. And while today all this psychobabble is about being seen and being recognized, I have to say, I get it. But when you have that moment of being seen or being appreciated, I told Jess this story. I could talk forever, but I told Jess this story. We were doing Dirty Sexy Money, and it was the day before we were going to shoot. And this is a story about billionaires in New York in a penthouse apartment, modern day. It was Donald Sutherland, Jill Clayburgh, Billy Baldwin, Lucy Liu, Peter Krause. The list went on. It was an amazing cast for an amazing producers, amazing writers, and the set that they let us build was just amazing. I was so proud of it. We actually became sort of like a tour stop on the Paramount backlot because you got to see the set for Dirty Sexy Bunny because you don't get stuff like this.
Yeah, wow.
Anyway, I get a phone call from my producer and he goes, Steve, it's Matt. Can you come down to the stage? Sure. I come down to stage and I walk into the office that we had built for Donald Sutherland. And I walk in and Matt says, Steve, I want you to meet, Donald wanted to meet you. Donald Sutherland? Donald Sutherland wants to meet me. Now, Donald's very formal and he's very smart and he was very kind and was an immense, he was the consummate gentleman. He stands up, grabs my hand, and he looks me straight in the eye and he says, I wanted to meet the man behind the genius. I hope I make you proud.
Wow.
What? I'm already like goosebumped. So he
Yeah.
says to me, Steve, can I ask you a question? Absolutely. He says, there's a door over in the corner of the set. Do you know where that door might go? So I quickly mumble out an answer that, well, as the scripts come out, it might be a private staircase to your helipad, might be to your private wine cellar, to your basement, to the cellars. We can take it as the scripts unfold. And as I open the door, there's a penny that's in the jamb of the door. Well, my father had just passed away. And in my family, we always said, when you see a penny, it's dad.
Wow.
So I pick up the penny and I'm like frozen. Arnold looks at me and he says, are you okay? And I said, I'm fine. I just lost my dad. And I know his son is Kiefer. And I did The Vanishing with Kiefer. So I know the dynamic between Kiefer and Donald at times has been at odds. But my father and I were very similar. But in the end, we were very, very close. And so I explained to Donald, I said, I just lost my dad. My family believes when we find a penny, dad's there. The man stands up, walks over to me, and he says, can I just hug you? Seriously? Moments like that validate everything to me.
Yeah.
Everything. Not only did I do my job, not only did I do a good job, a man who I respect, a man who has been an icon in a world that I never thought I belonged in. Like I was accepted.
Yeah.
I did my job. I did a good job.
And above all
Those kind
else,
of moments, now
humans are
that they're
humans.
retired, those they're your memories.
Yeah.
That's what you hold on to. And going forward, I'm sad that I'm not working anymore.
Yeah.
I'm really sad that the industry doesn't have a place for me. I've aged out. I had an agent. I was up for a number of big films, but you know why I didn't get it? It wasn't my body of work. I don't check
Yeah.
boxes.
Yep.
And I've had to accept that the world we live in now is restructuring. And I don't like it. Do I think it's going to make the world better? I think in the world of art, like what we do, it's not a good thing. People are being given positions that I don't know that they're qualified for.
Yeah.
You listen to Eduardo and you listen to Chris and you listen to their stories and you listen to their history. You got to remember, none of us knew where we were going to end up.
Yeah.
We had no clue if we were going to get another job.
Yeah.
But somehow, some way, we got old in this business. We're the lucky ones.
Yeah.
And when I listen to
Perfect.
Eduardo and his illustrations are brilliant. His stories, I could listen to him all day.
It's a
Chris,
great chat.
the same way.
Mhm.
Her stories, when you're in a makeup trailer and people are telling you their therapy, you learn a lot.
Yeah.
Being an art director and dealing with the egos, I used to joke all the time. Every set we used to do with TV, no matter who it was, the producer would say, "Call me when it's done. I want to see it before we shoot." Okay, we'll call you. So sometimes it'd be late at night, but set dressers got their stuff done. Greens put to the greens, backing got the backing hung. We pre-lit everything. It looks good. Like now we're rolling. Set, you want to come down and look? Come down and look. Inevitably, uh, the blue lamp. You think we could get a green lamp? Sure. And I used to joke all the time with my crew. I'd say, "Thank God we changed the lamp because I could see the reviews tomorrow.
Yeah.
Great set, love the show, wrong lamp."
Yeah. I mean, you sort of touch on their, legacy. I mean, how do you hope your work's remembered?
It's funny you say that because I ask myself the same question, like, will I matter? And I think mortality has hit me more than ever since now that I'm retired. I'm 69 years old. I didn't think I would be out of the workforce at 69. And I've asked myself, like, will I matter when I'm gone? Will anybody care that I was here? And I was doing a John Hughes movie. We were doing Dennis the Menace. And I was staying in those days, they put you up in really nice hotels. And I get to the hotel after a night shoot. And in those days, when you turned on your TV in the hotel room, you didn't get the main menu card. HBO came on. That was like the bonus. You're in our hotel, we're giving you HBO. So I remember on the TV taking my jacket off, and I click on the TV, and a little dot appears on the screen, and it blows up, and it says production designer Stephen Wolff. HBO was airing Tales from the Crypt. I did the very first season of Tales from the Crypt. I also was I say, the first production designer that worked with Arnold Schwarzenegger. He directed an episode. Yost Vacano was the DP. It was with Bill Hickey, Kelly Preston, and it was about a mad scientist buying body parts to win over Kelly Preston, his young love. And I just remember those kinds of moments where, I joke about, like with Arnold, my kids were young. My wife and I had gone out to dinner with some friends. Their son was in preschool with our daughter. They came back to our house for coffee. Phone rings. My wife answers it. "Stephen, Arnold's on the phone." "What?" "Arnold called and wanted me to come to the house and have breakfast and discuss and bring a model of the set that we had designed." I go to his house. I get frisked at the property gates and I go to the pool and Arnold comes out. And the next thing I know, there's Maria Shriver. She was pregnant with Catherine, their first daughter.
Wow.
And my art department had made him a stuffed bear for the baby, to which he wrote us a thank you note that I still have. And I thought, I'm eating with Schwarzenegger and a Kennedy. I'm Maria Shriver's here. How did I get here? But I believe, like I've said to you countless times since we started this, I was where I was supposed to be, and I did my best. I think Joe Pesci said, I was told this, and I can't fact check it. I think Joe Pesci is the one when he won his Academy Award. He said, "I did my best," and I kind of feel like that's how I feel. Like I did
Yeah.
my best. I really don't feel like I cheated anybody. I didn't sell myself to be something that I wasn't. You know, working on Starship Troopers, I worked for a really wonderful English production designer, Alan Cameron. And when he hired me, I said to him, "Look, Alan, sci-fi is not my thing. Like, I don't live in this world. I know nothing about sci-fi. I never watched Star Trek, none of that stuff ever. But I can tell you this, I'll bring you 100 ideas a day. And if you like any of them, let's run with it.
Yeah.
And if you hate 100 of them, I'll bring you 100 more." Because I was just so excited to be working and to be part of this group and to be in the cool group yet that you couldn't mess it up for me. Yeah, I
Amazing.
literally, I never saw my paychecks used to go automatically to my account, and my wife has always paid all the bills. I have no idea what I've made.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have $1 in the bank or $1 million.
But you're happy.
Pig and shit.
Yep. I love that. Look, Steve, before we finish off, we love to do a little thing called the Fast Five. So, you know, um, but before I do, I just want to ask one last question, and that is, what's next in store for Steve Wolff? You know,
What's next for me
a
right
little
now?
birdie tells me maybe some lecturing in Palm Springs.
You know, it's interesting you say that because there are a number of really, really talented set decorators and production designers that have come to live down here because it is a really lovely lifestyle. The architecture, the mid-century modern architecture here, the Hollywood colony and the history of Hollywood in the desert, the weather, just the whole environment down here is it's it's a really enchanted life. Um, the University of California, San Bernardino is down the street from me. And I've gone to a number of interesting lectures that they have put on. And I thought I would love to tell kids in school that are thinking about what they want to do for themselves, their careers going forward. This is an option. No more than I did. Listen to my contemporaries tell you about their stories. Were they always great? No, there were a few times you went home crying. A few times you got shot down and it wasn't very nice. But all in all, you are part of a very elite fraternity, sorority that they don't forget you. You know, I've never won an award. I've never won an Academy Award. I've never been nominated. I never nominated my work for an Emmy. I never nominated my work for an Art Director's Award because to me, the reward was in the body of the work. And the fact that I never was in a position where I had to compromise myself, my ideas. I love to be challenged. I loved meeting people that I didn't know before and walking away from a production with maybe one or two people that you stay in touch with. I mean, I have friends that are, we're 40 years together.
Yeah.
So next for me, I just actually came from I had to have a TB test. I'm going to be a volunteer at Eisenhower Hospital. I'm going to deal with people that are coming into chemotherapies and infusions. I am going to, my wife and I, at this state of life, we've had 5 houses. Um, I have fallen in love with another house. And my kids are yelling at me, if you think mom should have divorced you before you did 5 houses, are you sure you want to tackle a sixth one? But when you have I believe if you have that creative yearning and that is in you, I can tell you from my own life experience, when I am not creatively challenged, I'm miserable. I'm miserable. I'm in
Well,
my
you,
courtyard working in the garden. I'm scouring ideas for something to do in the house. I'm always creating something for somebody somewhere because I need that release.
well, let's give you a creative challenge today with our Fast Five. It's five very simple questions with one word answers.
Okay.
Sometimes maybe not so simple, but we'll see how we go. So the first one should be an easy one for you. TV shows or movies?
TV shows.
TV. Uh, favorite country you've traveled to?
Venice, Italy.
Interesting. Um, one word to describe your style.
Oh, I, I tell people desert glam.
Desert glam. I love that.
I love the mid-century modern in the desert. I love the way it photographs on sets, but it's too strict and severe. So I love adding the sort of boho glam of more shit.
Brilliant. Now, on the back of a potential sixth house, your favorite room in a house.
Favorite room in the house? Um, my master bathroom.
And final fast five, favorite decade for design inspiration.
Oh, no doubt. 80s.
Bring on
Bring
the
back
80s.
padded shoulders, big hair, big. I used to have the really big glasses with big long hair. I have a long face. You put long hair, big glasses, big nose. You put me out there, you remember it.
80s. I love that. I
Oh,
love
I
that.
love the 80s. Loved the 80s.
Steve, thank you so much for joining us today. That's all we've got time for on this episode of Creative Glue, but join us each month as we continue to explore the creative glue that brings us all together. If you haven't already, please check out the rest of the Creative Glue episodes, and it's all available on YouTube, Spotify, or the Apple Podcast. Simply search Creative Glue Podcast and you'll find us. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned to see who will be joining us next on Creative Glue.
Your ideas and my ideas will stick together like glue. 'Cause we've got the creative